President Monson went to a gas station, filling up his car with gas. He goes inside to pay the bill, takes out the money, puts it down on the counter, and this young man is kind of leaning against the wall over on the other side, and he sort of saunters over, you know. He's got these low-rider pants, and he's got this ratty old T-shirt, his poor mother, and he's got dreadlocks, you know, for hair, and he's got all kinds of things hanging off of him, chains and clips and a tongue bar and scruffy beard, and, you know. He comes up and he takes the money and gives him the change, and President Monson looks at him. Now, most of us would have been doing this. President Monson looks at him and he says, "You getting ready to go on a mission?" There's no little badge that says, "I hope they call me on a mission," you know, like they do in primary. And the young man just looks at him like, "What?" And he says, "Yeah, you getting ready to go on a mission? Let me tell you about my mission experience. You know, I was in the mission field in Toronto where he was the mission president, age 32. And then he talked about how he learned from the Lord how to reach out to people with the gospel of Jesus Christ. And some people accepted it, and others were merely blessed by it, and by the kindness and the love that he showed, and by the willingness of young men to set aside the track they were on and choose to become what the Lord had in mind for them. He goes through this whole routine, and the young man just looks at him. Finally, President Monson gets ready to leave, and he says, "Do this for me. When you go home tonight, pray about whether or not you're ready to go on a mission and what you need to do next." The young man looks at him. President Monson goes out and gets in his car. End of story. Until President Monson gets the other side of the story in a letter from this young man who described how he went home, and no, he did not get down on his knees and pray about going on a mission. That happens in the Ensign. But he goes home and ignores it, and it goes months and months and months. And finally, one Sunday morning, he's walking through the living room, and he sees this man on the television set. It's the man from the gas station. And he feels something in his heart. My spirit will be in your hearts, even when you don't look the part. And he sits down on the couch and starts to listen. Well, you can imagine his parents. "He's watching General Conference." But they don't say anything. They just sit there demurely looking over at him. "Nice talk." And he sits and listens to the man on the television. He sits through the whole meeting. And when it's over, he gets up and he goes into his room and he closes the door and he gets down on his knees and he says to the Lord, "I haven't done this for a really long time, but I need to talk to you about going on a mission." How do we know this? Because the young man went on a mission to New Mexico and wrote a letter to President Monson thanking him for stopping him at the gas station and helping him become what he could become.